So now we're going to work on a full head of highlights, foiling, and we're going to be using a weave technique. But the first thing I want to show you is the sectioning. In the back, we have 3 panels. We have that center panel from our apex to the nape, and then each side of that. And then our 2 sides are from apex to behind the ear. To begin your full head of highlights, you always want to start in the back, and there's several reasons for that. One is you can go in and control your volume of developer and lower it so that it processes a little bit slower, and then you can go in as you're working further up the head or to the sides and up your volume of developer so that you have a processing time that increases as you move forward or up the head so that you have a complete processing time that equals out to about the same. Also, for starting in the back, is that if the back is processed before your front or your top or your sides is processed, it's much easier to take the foils out in the back and have your client lay back in the sink and rinse the foils that have been completed in the back than it is if you start in the front and your foils are done here before here. It's gonna be a whole lot harder to put that client into this shampoo bowl from the side. So the first thing that we're gonna do to get this started in the back, so I'm gonna make sure that she's in a good position for me to work. So I'm gonna have her head tilted forward slightly. And I'm gonna kind of work center back. So begin in this back center part. We're going to use the weaving method today. You could actually go in and use slicing. It's going to depend on the density of the client's hair that you're working with, how much highlights they want. So we're going to start in the back, and I'm going to do the same thing that we've done with the partial foiling. With the partial foiling, we took 1/4 of an inch parting, and then we sliced that in half. We're going to do the same thing working on the full head here. I'm going to come in with our foil. I'm going to use the same technique of having that foil fold over the edge of our comb, pulling that out and making sure that that foil is nice and clean with the scalp. I'm going to apply that product about 1/2 inch under the edge of the foil. Hold my hand under. I'm going to work down, making sure that that product saturates the hair. Get those ends up into that foil. I'm going to go back, hold that foil at the scalp, and I'm going to work that product up to about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the foil. You'll find on the mannequin and on clients that this will be a little bit more difficult area to work in because of the curve of the head and the curve of the neck. One of the things I want you to think about when you're beginning in the back with your foils is how you have that towel draped on the client. If you have that towel really bulky, you're going to have a little bit harder time, and that foil is going to want to stick out like this. So if you drape with 2 drapes, or 2 towels, just make sure that they stay pretty flat. So we're going to work up the head using 1/4 of an inch partings. Again, depending on how much highlights your client wants to see, the density of the head, density of the hair, the texture of the hair, all of those things want to take into consideration when you're deciding how you're going to do your foil placement and how much hair you're going to add to your foils. So again, coming in 1/2 inch under the edge of the foil, Come back, place my hand underneath. Again, we don't want to comb it through. We want to lay that product on the hair, making sure that we saturate it. You can go back to the base area, work that up about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the foil. You're going to use the same folding method that you use for your partial and for your slicing. A nice fold at the bottom, crease your sides, and we'll continue to work up. Once we get this top completed, we're going to come back and show you the sides. Okay, so this is our center back section completed from nape to apex. Now I want to show you how to get started on either your left or your right side back panel. I'm going to turn her slightly and tilt her forward slightly. One of the things that I want you to notice though, because of the way that we've folded our foils, when we go to work on our side panels, these foils are not going to be in our way at all now because of our folding technique. So we want to come in. You're going to begin your same 1/4 of an inch parting, and you're working in a smaller area. Still want to split that in half. Do your weave technique. Apply your foil. And make sure that that edge is snug to the scalp. You still want to come in about 1/2 an inch away from the scalp to apply your product. Once you know that hair is secured onto the foil with your product, come in and place your hand underneath. Get those ends up into the foil. I'm going to go back in and make sure that foil is back snug to the scalp again. Not letting it go, and I want to make sure that I grab this top before I move my hands, or grab this bottom before I move my hands from the top. Fold up. Do your fold at the bottom, because remember this helps secure that foil in. And you want to come in and you're going to fold a little bit smaller packet, just so that it's not in the way and it doesn't, not made to lay or stand up or out from the other foils. So you'd work your way up. And what I want to show you now is what you would do when you get into this corner here. So we would apply our foils and use our same technique that we used in our center back panel. But when we get into the area where this starts being a little bit more triangle section, you're going to have to fold slightly different. So I'm going to come into this area where it starts becoming more triangular. Get that hair I'm not working with out of my way. My weave technique is a little much right in the middle. I'm going to knock some of that out. Apply our fold just like we do normally. Work that product through the hair, making sure that we lay it on it, not trying to comb it through it with our color brush. Go back to the scalp area. Work that product to about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the foil. We're going to fold our foil up just like we normally do. We're going to put our little crease and fold at the bottom. Get that hair out the way there. But now you want to come in and give it a little bit more of that triangle fold so that it works with your sectioning and it still stays out of the way of your next section. So we'll do one more to show. We'll move this here back out of the way. Make sure that hair is nice and neat. Again, that hair that I'm not working with is up and out of my way. And slice my 1/4 inch parting in half. Get my weave section. Product on, work it through, get those ends up into the foil, making sure your product is saturated onto the hair, back to the base area, about 1/4 of an or 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the foil. You're going to fold up once. Fold that bottom, crease it, fold it up, and then we're gonna make a triangle part. So I'm still doing the crease. I'm just making that crease triangle instead of that little square packet. Okay, so this is how you'll complete your 2 back panels on each side. We're going to be moving to the front panels in just a minute. Okay, so we reviewed the back center. We went to our sides to show you how to fold your foils and where to start. We're going to move to our sides, our front sides. I'm going to show you a little trick getting started off. Even on the mannequin, just like on a real client, you're going to have a peak here from the front hairline where the sideburn area is. And instead of trying to place a foil directly over the ear where the ear is going to be in the way of the foil, if you'll take slight diagonal back partings and use those for your foil placement on your sides, it'll work much easier for you. I'm going to show you a couple here. We're going to use the same folding technique. Make sure you work that product through to the ends. Work it back up to about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the foil. Same bottom fold method, creasing our sides and folding that in. We'll show you a few more. I'm going to go up a little bit higher than 1/4 of an inch, just so you can see that placement. How it lays over that ear area much nicer than if you tried to go just horizontally over the ear. And again, the reason we fold the foils the way we were folding them is because as I'm working on my sides here, the foil from the back is already folded out of my way. The less you move the foils while you're working, the less chance you're going to have of any bleed marks from product being placed where it shouldn't be placed, or working out of your foil. See how those foils lay nice and neat. Again, I'm going to come up a little bit further than 1/4 inch. See the diagonal back parting. The hair that I'm not working with is out of my way. Because I took a larger than 1/4 inch parting, what I'm going to do is just slice off the top of the parting I did take. Do a nice even weave on that. Placing my foil really close to the scalp. If we can get a little bit of a close-up of this, I want you to be able to see how close the edge of the foil is to the scalp and how thin that weaved section is. This is what you want to work towards. Make sure you're applying that product about 1/2 inch under the edge of the foil. Get that hair where it's nice and stuck to your foil. Work that product through the ends. Don't work the product all the way down to the end of the foil. Go back. Don't go back and get more product. Use your product that's on your brush. Go back and work that product right to about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the foil. As long as you don't load the product up when you're working with lightener or color, as long as you don't load that product up right at the edge, you won't have to worry about it bleeding. If you put too much product there, that's usually one of the main causes of bleed marks when you're foiling. So again, fold that just slight crease at the bottom for that, because it's a little bit more than 1 inch fold. And then crease in the sides. And never crease in past your parting. So I don't want to pull this hair from here over into my foil. Right. As you work up the head, I want you to remember a couple of things. In some areas where the hair you're working in, or the area you're working in, may be a little wider, you may have to go in and place 2 foils side by side. It depends on the size of the client's head that you're working with or the size of the mannequin. A lot of times you're going to find in these 2 back panels, when you're doing a full head of weaved highlights, you're going to find these 2 back panels are pretty wide right behind the ear, and then in this area on your front side panel you're going to find it's a little wide. So I'm going to come in, take that nice thin parting, and since we skipped up and our parting's a little bit wider, or it's a little bit thicker than 1/4 inch, I'm just going to take a nice little thin slice off of this. I'm going to come in and weave it. My foil on the edge of my comb. And then apply my product. Again, we want to lay that product on the hair, not use the bristles of the color brush to comb it through. Go back and work that to the edge. Do my crease in the back, and now what I want to do is crease it so that I have a smaller foil here, and that way I can place another right beside it. And this is what I mean by having your foils side by side. Instead of trying to place one large foil in this wide area, Take that very front hairline out. Okay, so I have a few little key things I want to go over before we end this. One is, first thing you want to do before you begin any foils, whether you're doing slicing, weaving, or if you're doing chunky highlights, whatever the case may be, you're going to make sure that the foil that you're working with is nice and neat. So this is a nice straight flat foil. If I picked up one of my foils and it was already kind of bent up, it's not going to make for a nice clean packet, and I'm going to have to keep messing with it, and then I'm going to have to press it down where it's out of my way. So the more wrinkles that that foil has in it, the less chance of it laying really nice, and it ends up being a bulkier foil, which means that you're going to have to move it out of your way more. And I'm going to be honest with you, presentation is everything. If your clients see these nice, neat, clean foils in their hair, or the clients that are maybe on the floor now are seeing you do this on someone else, they're going to go, you know, I really want to come back and see that person for my highlights. So just keep those things in mind. I also want to talk about, a lot of times stylists, as we work from the back to the front, we get a little lazy because we start to get tired or we get rushed. This area in the front is what we call our money shot. Okay? This top part where people can see down on the top of the head, or where the hair part's off, anywhere that people can look in the mirror and see the very front of their hair, or the parting, or the crown. This is the money shot. You want to make sure your foils are nice and perfect in this area. We know that as you grow and you become a seasoned stylist, you'll get better with your foil techniques. But just remember, keep that in mind. You want to make sure that what your client sees is really good up front. That doesn't give you an excuse to make them bad in the back, but I want you to keep this in mind, that this is the area that our clients see most.